Welcome back, amazing leaders, to season 3 of Building Leadership Community Podcast. And this episode is incredibly special. We are honored to welcome a leader who embodies that very heart of what we believe here. That leadership is not just about strategy and systems, but about people, about connection, about creating spaces where every voice can be heard and every person can belong. Our season 3 episode guest is an organizational leader, educator, and champion of workplace cultures where belonging and innovation thrive. Dr. Lori Marie Huertas. By the end of this conversation, you will walk away with a renewed understanding of what people centered leadership truly means, practical wisdom on building cultures of belonging, and a powerful reminder that investing in people with both strategy and heart is the pathway to sustainable change. This episode is your invitation to lead with deeper purpose, greater compassion, and the conviction that when we develop people, we transform organizations. So let's settle in, take a breath, and get ready. Hello, and welcome to Building Leadership Community Podcast. I'm your host, Dora Mendez. I am the founder and CEO of Coach Dora LLC. Our guests will be entrepreneurs, small business owners, and community leaders that drive social impact. It can be lonely at the top, but it doesn't have to be. Thank you so much. I'm so thrilled and happy that you join us week after week for these conversations, that you're back with us for season 3. It can be lonely at the top, but it doesn't have to be. That is why we started this podcast. If you're new to Building Leadership Community, we are so glad you are here. Please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so you never miss an episode. Say hi in the comments and make sure you hit that bell button if you're watching on YouTube so that you get notified when new episodes drop. We have some great resources to share with you today. If you're thinking about starting your own podcast, check out our mini course, The Entrepreneur's Podcast Blueprint. I've partnered with my husband and co-producer Dylan Rogers to create 5 easy to follow video modules along with a workbook that you can download and follow along at your own pace. And you get a very handy AI prompt sheet that will make getting your episode out there into the world a breeze. The link is in the description. Also, this video includes affiliate links. If you purchase through them, it will help us continue to bring you amazing, inspiring content. We are continuing this season with incredible momentum and purpose. Let me tell you about our guest today, Dr. Lori Marie Huertas. She is a bilingual in English and Spanish organizational leader with more than a decade of experience in human resources, leadership development, and higher education. But what truly sets her apart is her unwavering commitment to developing people and cultivating workplaces where belonging and innovation can thrive. Dr. Huerta draws inspiration from Maya Angelou, belief in the power of human connection, and she brings that philosophy to life in everything she does. Her career has included leading workforce initiatives, designing experiential learning programs, and coaching hundreds of students and professionals as they discover their voice and purpose in the workplace. Dr. Huerta excels at building collaborative pathways between education and industry. From 2020 to 2025, Dr. Huertas completed her doctoral studies while navigating one of life's most profound challenges, supporting terminally ill loved ones. This period of transition reinforced her commitment to purposeful, people-centered leadership. Today, she continues to explore opportunities in organizational culture, learning and development, and people strategy, roles that allow her to help organizations invest in their people with both strategy and heart. And today, Dr. Huertas is here to pour into you. I'm so thrilled to welcome the brilliant Dr. Lori Marie Huertas to the stage. Hi, Dr. Lori.
Hi, Dora. Nice to see you again.
I'm so thrilled that you're here. We have so much in common, and I just want to share with our audience, our listeners, and our viewers that I learned about you just through social media. And I think we were connected through LinkedIn, and you immediately reached out. We had a lovely conversation, and you recommended me for another podcast, which I was happy to do. Speaking to First Gen, we have that in common. We both teach at the college level, and I'm just so thrilled that you're here. I know people are going to get so much value out of listening to your story. So without any further ado, can you share with our listeners and our viewers, a bit about your unique leadership story?
Yeah, born in New York, raised in Puerto Rico. So my family moved to Puerto Rico when I was in the fourth grade. So I did half of elementary, middle school, and then half of high school, and then moved back to the U.S. Moved back to Virginia, which for me was a culture shock because at that time there weren't many Hispanic students at the school that I went to in Virginia. So I think I've talked about this in other podcasts. So I was bullied a little bit, but thanks to a teacher who really saw me and made me feel valued, I realized that college was an option for me. So did my bachelor's. I finished my bachelor's at USC, University of South Carolina, Columbia. And it's pretty funny. Hootie and the Blowfish used to play on my campus when I was in school. And I used to say, that guy's going to be famous one day. And of course, he is. He's,
The rest is history.
now he's doing country music. Again, then I ended up getting my master's in counseling psychology, started in education, and then switched to counseling psychology and completed my doctorate in organizational leadership. I really quick, Dora, I will share something that I don't think I told you, but I'll say it really quick in regard to leadership is that, from when I was a little girl, my dad, may he rest in peace, always empowered me to use my leadership skills. And so I'll give a quick example of something that resonates with me because I still kind of do it today. And I try to emulate the same empowerment with my grandkids now. And I used to try with my son. My son was born a leader, so with him it was really easy. But I remember when I was about 6 or 7 years old, I was with my dad at a business meeting at a hotel lobby, and there was something that him and his colleagues needed, and whoever was had said no. I don't know. They needed something from the front desk, and the guy came back, and he's like, "Yeah, they said they can't do it." And he looked at me and he says, "Laura, you go ask." I was 7 years old, and I went up there, and I don't even remember specifically what it was. It was a document or something, and I came back with the document, and they were like, "How'd she do that?" And I was like, she just has that gift. And so he never framed it or coined it the term leadership, but it just really stuck in me that after that I just felt like invincible.
You're brave. You've always been courageous and compassionate, and that sort of genuine uh, courageousness. I don't know how to also to phrase it. It just really comes through, and people gravitate towards that. That's a beautiful story. Sort of the genesis of Dr. Huerta's leadership, a 7-year-old just, commanding, uh, getting what she wants for other people, facilitating, making things happen.
And
Um,
Dora, real quick, I'll just say also because it just reminded me. So in October, so I work at Metropolitan State University of Denver, like you mentioned, and it's in the bio. And I brought students to HACU, which is the Hispanic Association of Colleges and Universities annual conference that occurred in Denver. And I was during lunch, they had like speakers on stage. There was like thousands of people there, and I'm with my student leaders at the table in the back. And this gentleman gets on stage from Deloitte, the company, and one of my finance students says, "Wow, I always wanted to meet that guy." And so I said, "Well, let's go." So that trait from 7 years old was still in me. So as soon as the guy said, "Watch when he's at the end of his speech, let's start walking up." So we started walking up. We went through the side. As soon as he came down the stairs, I had my business card. And I said, "That was a wonderful speech. I want to introduce you to one of my student leaders. Here is my business card. You are just one of someone that he looks up to. I don't know if you have an hour for him to interview you or maybe consider being his mentor." And so, again, just showing that those skills that we empower young people, when I say young, from kindergarten to the future, they do make a difference.
Thank you for sharing that story. That you have to take that risk. Risk leadership. Part of leadership is really putting yourself out there, and you've learned how to do that, and that's a great story. Um, and that's a great segue to our next conversation prompt. We asked all our guests, sort of, what does community mean to you, and because leadership can be isolating. It can be, it takes a lot of courage to put yourself out there, right? And it can be isolating and can be lonely. So here's your opportunity to kind of share what community means to you and why it's important.
Yeah, so Dora, I 100% agree that leadership, even though for me, I find it very rewarding, it is lonely at times. Sometimes people don't understand. Sometimes people just assume that because leaders, we got it. Like they see us in this like superwoman, we don't need anybody role. And so community is what grounds us. And I think community is just extremely important to sustain our work. It just reminds us that we don't have to carry the weight of change on our own. So as leaders like yourself, when we surround ourselves with trusted peers, mentors, and collaborators, we just gain like different viewpoints, perspectives. We get encouragement, and it's also a level of accountability that makes our journey feel less isolated, and it just continues to give us purpose. And I did also want to say, Dora, that wellness is really important. So I think building intentional pauses in our day, even if it's a short walk, journaling, breathing, it's just ways for us as leaders to recharge and stay present personally and within our community, and connecting regularly with supportive communities, not just professional, but personal, looking at areas that we're passionate about. That's another way for us to create a circle of care. And this is a way that we can share our struggles, like you shared. I experienced grief during my doctorate, and I actually quit my job. I quit school to take care of my sweet dad during his last year of life. I would have done it all over again. But finding communities like within hospice of other families that went through the same thing was really helpful for me to not feel alone. Celebrating victories, learning from each other. And then, at the end, I feel that leadership is just that we don't have to stand alone at the top. We could stand together, which is something I feel like you and I are doing and hopefully continue to do, and create spaces of belonging and just modeling balance, like I try to do for my students, so that others know that they can lead with strength and humanity.
Oh, Dr. Huertas, thank you so much for those words. But they're not just words. You take action. You've taken action, and you lead by example. So I wanted to just pick up on a thread, something else that we have in common. My father passed away due to COVID-19, uh, and he was Puerto Rican, very proud Puerto Rican, like I'm sure your dad was. So we share that in common. Um, and I love this notion of circle of care. And you mentioned a couple of things when you were talking. We were talking about, I always like to think of community with respect to balance as authenticity and accountability, like together, like where you feel comfortable in your own skin to be yourself, but at the same time, there's a sort of accountability partner, partners and in your peers. So I find that that's because you mentioned balanced, and I when I boil down like the nugget to what you're saying, I feel like it's like authenticity and accountability together. Is kind of how the way I'm translating what you're saying about this circle of care when it comes to community. So I thank you for that. When's
And
your
Dora,
book coming? When is your book coming on? I feel like
so,
Dr. Huertas, when's your book coming?
So I'll tell you real quick about the book, but can I just really quick, Dora? I do want to give a vision. Come on, I'm a visual person. Everybody knows, like, I'm all about visual stuff. So just for the audience to visualize what we were just saying about the circle of care, I'm going to give everybody a great example. So I just got certified last year as a doula because there was a grant in Denver to get certified as doulas because there was a shortage of Spanish-speaking bilingual doulas in Denver. And anyway, that whole grant was initiated by a nonprofit called Elephant Circle. And the reason that nonprofit is called Elephant Circle because elephants in Africa specifically, they are an animal that's extremely maternal and they have a great memory, right? But one of the beautiful things is that there's actually pictures of elephants in a circle, right? Holding their tails, and it's the grandmas and it's the moms. And if you look in the middle, they're protecting a baby. And many times when people look at the baby's not an elephant. They protect baby monkeys. They protect baby tigers. And it's, again, that community of care, and that it doesn't matter what race or what type of animal that's in there. It is worthy of being cared for, and how can, as a community, can we care? And every time I think of that term, I think of the elephants and how can we protect and then empower regardless of where the whoever we're encouraging comes from.
Oh, I love that image. It's great for especially for our listeners out there. For our viewers, I'm gonna put a little note to my podcast producer to put a little picture of that elephant circle. So I think Lori, for those who watch us on YouTube, that we're gonna splice in a little picture of that elephant circle. And for those listeners out there, I think Lori's description will paint a picture in your mind, which is lovely. So that leads to the next to our next conversation prompt, which is, what advice would you give to the next generation of leaders? And is it something you would, tell your younger self when you first started out on your
Mhm.
journey, which you have such a unique journey? What advice do you have to give?
Yeah, I feel that if I could speak to my younger self at the start of my career, I would just remind myself that leadership is a journey and to enjoy the journey, that it's about direction, not perfection, and that it's not a race. And just so you know, even though this is the advice I would give my earlier self, I still have to give myself this advice today, because, like you said, how you message me and I message you back right away, I do feel that sometimes I'm in a race, and so just reminding ourselves that we don't have to have it all figured out at once, that it's important to stay curious, to keep learning. I was approached by NYU to get my master's in speech pathology. And even though I have my doctorate, I'm seriously considering it because I do think that learning is really important. Trust in every experience, even the challenging ones, just really helps shape us into the leader that we're called to be. I would tell my younger self to seek out mentors, There is so much value. I really, I had that teacher that looked out for me when I was in high school, which was kind of a mentor, but I feel like my first strong mentor, I found them when I was getting my graduate degree. So I would encourage my younger self to seek out mentors really early, especially first gen, like we were talking about, because I love my parents. My parents were amazing, but at one point they were like, look, just find a nice guy and get married. They didn't really care if I went to college. So that's when mentors really were able to give me the tools and encouragement and resources so that I could do what I needed to do and not feel like I was alone. I feel like volunteering is extremely important. So just getting involved in your community early is important. Surrounding yourself with people like you, Dora, people that inspire us, challenge us, people that support us. Just remembering that your voice matters. That's a big thing for me with my students, is just reminding them that they have a voice. Even if it shakes at first, just do it. It's kind of like what you talked about, taking a risk, just jumping in, just, being able to start, with baby steps. And then most importantly, I would just tell my younger self to prioritize balance and wellness. I think growing up, wellness was never even talked about. So titles and achievements are important. And I think the New Yorker in me is very competitive, but family, faith, health, and joy are invaluable. And so the next generation of leaders really needs to know that true leadership comes, as you said earlier, from authenticity, compassion, and the courage to bring other people along with us.
I love that. I love that. There was a common thread in what you said with bringing along people. Um, uh, a common thread where I'm trying, like the nugget of what you're saying really is um, finding mentors, but really a connection, building connections along the way. And so connection for you seems to be the thread in that advice, like really making genuine a connection in order to build uh, designed what success looks like for you, because it's not a race, right? We talked about that. It's not a race, and it's different for everyone, but you want to have genuine connection to support others, and they support you. So I wonder, I want to just build on something, because we both work with, like for me, one of the things that I love about teaching, I teach as an adjunct in a public management department um, at John Jay College of Criminal Justice, which is part of the City University of New York. You shared that you're in Denver. And part of the reason why I love teaching is I feel like I learn just as much from my students as I hope that they learn from me, right? And I'm very open to like learning from, continuously learning and improving, and getting that feedback from them, as I know they really care about getting feedback from me. So I'd love to just take us on a different direction and pick your brain about what's that philosophy, like your teaching philosophy, because for me, it's really not a top down. Like I don't teach
Mm.
like, here's all the things that I have to say, just learn it and spit it back out. I mean, it's more about like a collaborative process of like learning and growing together. And I would love to hear your philosophy on that.
Yeah, I feel like my teaching philosophy is a combination of a couple of different ones. I feel it's definitely kind of what along the lines of what you were saying, servant leadership. So, servant leadership in that, I'm really here to serve the students. Yes, I have information on whatever the course topic that I need to share with the students, make sure they understand it, answer their questions. However, a lot of times, like you say, well, every time, every class, I learn more from the students than they do from me. Their insight, especially in thinking of different generations, and how this generation, like, they've had struggles that I didn't have. Like, if they went through COVID, I have students that didn't even go to their high school graduation. Then I have students that are only taking online because maybe they're taking care of their sick family members, or they're single parents. I actually have students that maybe even had issues with the law, but now they're getting they're trying to do the right thing now. And so they're navigating those challenges. I've also had student veterans that are transitioning from being in the military to now being in the civilian world and trying to see what's that like. And I mean, I remember I had a student that in my class, we were talking about leadership, and we were talking about careers and job searching because I'm teaching a careers and psychology course. And the student was like, well, I'm not getting interviews. And I get it. And the student was so humble. The student was like, and I get it. It's because, I just got out of the military. I don't have experience. And I was like, what was your role in the military? And they're like, well, I was an officer and I used to lead the pilots. And I'm like, whoa, like, you're a leader. Like, what do you mean you don't have experience? You have more experience than me. So I would look at the resume, and the civilian resume was just like, I was in the Marines, right? And then I'm in college right now, and it was just like a super short resume. And I would say, can I see your joint services transcript, which is the military transcript? And they would show it. And that thing was like 4 or 5 pages long of all the trainings they did, how like they were like leading these groups. And I'm like, look, let's put that on your resume, because those are what we call transferable skills. And transferable skills: critical thinking, problem solving, decision making, communication. These are the essential skills that employers are looking for. They say it over and over again. And so, again, learning from the students, like, that to me was like an aha moment, to just remind students at the beginning of class that, hey, feel free to bring up your challenges, because so my other leadership style is solution focused, which I feel like I get from my counseling background. As we like try to find solutions to challenges, your challenge can help another student, can help another person. Like, even this podcast you have, Dora, I hope somebody listening to this is like, damn, she's right, I should put that on my resume.
That's what our hope. That is part of the it's so funny that I offer that service as well, Lori, Coach Dora. I help coach people into rethinking and reframing their career trajectory, and it starts with really telling the real story on their resume so they stand out. And it's so interesting you said that about the veteran who, like, they were so focused on the difference between military and civilian that they didn't realize how much value and how much the military experience and training they have is transferable to anywhere, really. And the fact that they didn't think they had experience was so incredible, a credible aha moment. And it's so wonderful to know that there are professors like you who can really see and help students really see their full potential and live up to it. And so I love that. And I'm happy that this will now be out in the world. And I hope that people are inspired and motivated to rethink their worthiness, because it's really about worthiness. Sometimes people don't feel like they're worthy of success. And 4 or 5 pages of amazing training and experience was overlooked because they didn't, like, in their mind they didn't see how worthy they were of leadership roles, and they didn't see themselves as a leader. And so that's why I think that thread of finding mentors, right? Not being afraid to share and be vulnerable, because had that student not uh, been vulnerable and shared, you wouldn't have been able to help guide them to help them understand that they are worthy.
And
And so, yeah, go
Dora,
ahead.
I'm so sorry to interrupt. I was just going
No.
to say that I really believe so much in the whole pay it forward concept. And, I really feel called every day of my life to leave a legacy and to help others like others helped me. And even the challenges I've had in life, like losing my mom and dad. And yesterday was really hard for me because yesterday we had our graduation at MSU Denver, and I was chosen as the faculty to hold the banner. And when I put my doctorate outfit on for the first time, and the cute little velvet hat and all that, I was crying, because there is a human factor to us as leaders, right? Dora, like we're still human. And just thanking God for the honor and thanking my parents wherever they are, hoping they can hear me. And then trying to leave a legacy. But like thinking of the students, like I think I've always had leadership qualities, but honestly, it wasn't until mentors, like you spoke about earlier, highlighted them to me or put a mirror in front of my face, I didn't really see them. Like they were there, but they weren't really being used. Kind of like that student that did the simple resume, the one that came from the military. I remember when I worked at an import export company, and I had my bachelor's degree, and I was a secretary. Well, I say secretary, they called it executive administrative assistant, whatever, same thing, to the vice president of the company. And he was out. He had to be out for like a couple weeks. And when he was gone, he said, "Look, since I'm going to be gone, really, there's nothing much for you to do. Just let these people know I'll get back. I am going to forward my emails to you. So you could just let them know that I'm gone, and then I'll respond when I get back." Well, I just naturally took it upon myself to, with some of the emails, resolve it. So, like, if it was issues I knew, I was like, no, this is what you need to do. So, when he came back, out of probably like, I don't know, 200 emails that he normally gets, he only had like 5. And he's like, "Where are the rest of my emails?" And I'm like, "Oh, they're filed." And he's like, "But don't I need to do them?" And I'm like, "No, I did them." And he pulled me in a room. He says, "I need to talk to you." And I thought I got in trouble. I'm like so scared. And he had a board, and he drew a picture, and it had a boat, and it had all these people, and it had like a building. And I said, "What are you doing?" He says, "Hear me out. Hear me out, because you come in here every day, you do your work, you do 150%, you say hi to everybody. You just basically did VP work as an administrative assistant, right? And I need to explain something to you." He goes, "Do you see this boat? Do you see that building that's sinking?" And I say, "Yes." He says, "What would happen if that was our company and our company was sinking today? And let's say I was in the boat with the president and a couple of the other VPs and it sunk. And let's say HR said, we have an option. We could keep the company running if any of you guys want to do it, or we could close it down. Do you think you could keep it running?" Like without hesitation, I was like, "Yeah, I could keep your part running." And he's like, "How?" And I was like, "Yeah, because," and I had like a strategic plan. "We would do this like this and this like this." And I talked to this person and talked to that person. He goes, "Yeah." He says, "Because you are a natural leader." And he's like, "And you know how to delegate." And he's like, "You need to infuse that. So I really want you to consider getting your master's degree." And so he was the one that even encouraged me. And then he was like, "And another thing, we're opening off an office in Bahamas, and we have a new secretary that's new. And I want you to train her and show her how you're running my office." So I was like, I was able to travel to do that. But again, bringing up the fact that, I didn't even realize my potential either until he pointed it out. And so me trying to be that person for my students, like someone was for me.
That's a great story, and I love that, paying it forward. And with that, that's a great way to wrap up our segment. I feel like Dr. Huertas, I could speak to you forever. We could talk forever about so many things, personal and professional. But we have to wrap up. So I want to leave it to you. What would you how can people learn more about you, support your work, and connect with you?
Yeah, it should be in the bio comments, but LinkedIn is the best way. The same way you and I found each other, Dora, LinkedIn is the best way for anyone to reach out to me.
And when's that book coming, Dr.
Oh,
Huertas?
you were
You
asking me
gotta
so.
get that book out because I you have so much to share with the world. And when's that book coming?
So I actually am currently writing a book called Careers in Psychology that'll be piloted next fall. And then I have another book proposal that I just sent out to a publisher. And so stay tuned. I don't have the date, but stay tuned.
All right. I just want to make sure we get that out there so people can look out for your work, because I think people will find a lot of inspiration, motivation, and value in what you have to share. So thank you for being on our show. We
Thank
are
you.
so honored that you spend time. We know how valuable your time is with us and across time zones, because you're on the West Coast and we are on the East Coast here in New York. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
I want to let our listeners and viewers know that we appreciate them. We hope they found value in our show. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And Dr. Huertas, hold on a moment as we roll our closing credits. You've been listening to Building Leadership Community. Watch on YouTube at Coach Dora M. Listen wherever you get your podcasts. Follow me on LinkedIn, Instagram, and YouTube at Coach Dora M. Visit me on the web at CoachDoraMendez.com. Hosted by me, Dora Mendez. Produced by Dora Mendez and Dylan Rogers. Graphics, editing, and sound mixing by Dylan Rogers.